camps a waste of time and money?
I went to a boot camp, but she didn't go to a boot camp.
I did not go to a boot camp. I taught myself at home.
So
we had the idea of getting into web development. And I think a lot of people are trying to do this because it's kind of a hot job right now.
I remember when she came to me, she's like, Matt, you could be making $60,000 a year doing web development, or 60 to 80,000. It seemed so beyond, like we were making like 20,000. The boot camp itself was 13,000 for 4 months. I think I took out like $25,000 in loans.
It was cheaper than a CS degree.
Right, it was cheaper and faster. Because I was looking,
faster.
I don't have any kind of degree, so I was looking at maybe getting a bachelor's degree in computer science. But it would have taken me 4 years, it would have been tons more money.
And having to take all the extra classes too that aren't computer science classes just because they're part of the college.
Right. And trying to support myself and my family for 4 years.
Yeah, and me trying to keep the kids out of his way while he's studying.
Right,
like,
so
no,
that was part of the thing with
the
boot camp. The boot camp was so good. Is that like, I mean, part of it was I was just buying the 4 months of time. Like I needed like the concentrated time. We were able to take all those loans so that I could cover my cost of living because I was living by myself in Atlanta, and you were basically living with family, with the kids. It had to be fast. It had to happen right away, and I was able to get a job within about a couple months after graduating.
And because you had a job, that made my situation a little more leisurely. Because all of our basic needs were covered, I did not need to get a job like right now. From when I started teaching myself to when I finally got a job, it was a little more than a year, and it was more part-time. Like Nat's boot camp was intense. All day, every day for 4 months?
Yep.
4 months. Me, about 4 hours a day on average, I would say. He let me go to coffee shops. It's wonderful. But at one point, this was actually after I had been studying for 6 months, I really wanted to go to a boot camp. It was smart for me to not start out going to a boot camp because I wanted to see if I would stay interested. I wanted to see if it was really for me or if I needed to just let it go and just be with the kids. So it was good to just try it out without that financial investment at first. But once I knew I was all in, that's when I really wanted to go to a boot camp. I really wanted to go.
Now, why'd you want to go?
Boot camps give you such a nice package deal. They give you a guide for what to learn. They help keep you motivated by having the projects and the deadlines and just the people around you all doing the same thing, and the teachers and teacher assistants all answering your questions. Oh, sounds like heaven. And they also let you interact with other people and networking as well. Like Nat did a great job networking. Yeah. It depends on the boot camp.
It really was, yeah. I mean, that was part of it, but I didn't really get a lot of. I have a lot of good friends and stuff from boot camp, but they didn't really help me get a job. I mean, the thing with me with people was really more just like moral support. It wasn't like some sort of high school class where no one wants to be there. Like they wanted to be there, they were paying money to be there. But just having that atmosphere was a huge help to me. So you wanted to go to a boot camp after 6 months, and looking back, there was 6 months more before you were going to get a job.
Why
didn't you go to a boot camp?
For one thing, a lot of my connections were saying that I was already at boot camp grad level. It was hard for me to believe because they cram a lot of stuff into those 4 months. I suppose I had a little more depth of knowledge in certain areas rather than
it's a
spread
lot of shallow,
out.
very shallow knowledge that you get.
Right. So because I was setting my own pace, my own curriculum, I could focus on things for as long as I wanted.
Yeah, you definitely knew more about certain things than I did. That was around when you were actually starting to apply for jobs, right? Didn't you get a job interview?
Oh, you're
That's probably
right.
what triggered it. That's probably what triggered it.
You're right.
She got a job interview.
I got a
failed.
job interview. I
completely
failed. I'm like, oh my
it.
goodness, I'm not ready yet. I need to go to a boot camp like
Yeah,
pronto.
that's what it was.
Yeah, I got discouraged. I thought I didn't know enough, and I never would. Yeah.
That's the worst part of this whole thing.
Yep. But really what ended up happening was Nat asked me a very important question. If someone was going to pay me to teach myself to code for $10,000, would I do it? And when he put it that way, I was like, yeah.
That's what she did. She literally paid herself from the future.
Right. My future self paid me, or I paid my future self. How does that work? I paid my future self?
Oh, you paid your future self, right.
I paid my future self because my future self would have had to pay that
money.
Going
into debt is stealing from your... So I stole $25,000 from my future self.
Yeah.
She gave her future self $10,000.
Here you go, future self. That's me.
Yeah. And future me was happy too.
Be-
Future me gets half that, right?
Sure, whatever. Time travel is so confusing.
I got half the future money.
Here's $5,000 future net.
Oh, thank you. I was working hard too. I was watching the kids.
That's right. Well,
3 hours a day.
that
Or
helped
3
me a
hours
lot.
a week. No, 3 days a week.
Well, the coffee shop times were Tuesday and
Right,
Thursday
but
evenings
she would like
and Saturday
she would
mornings.
teach herself while she was like with the kids and help. I mean, when the kids were just playing quietly and stuff, she was.
Yeah.
You were definitely motivated. You definitely had the motivation, and yeah, you figured out what you needed to learn. So I think after you got over that kind of that hump, you were able to keep focusing and keep learning.
And the other thing that I was able to provide for myself was there was the social aspect and the networking. And I did that through social media, well, meetups as well, but social media primarily, LinkedIn and then Twitter. And that helped me enormously as well, just being connected with other developers, getting their advice and their knowledge, and just not feeling like I was just by myself doing this hard stuff.
Yeah, and that was like something like I never even knew existed. Like when before I went to the boot camp, like I didn't even know there was like these online communities of people that were helping each other and getting jobs. Like she got her first job from Twitter.
Yeah.
What it used to be, like her mom did programming back in the
Yeah.
80s, okay? And she wanted to go get a master's degree in computer science, huge investment of time and money. Her daughter did it in 2020 with, I mean, you have a degree, but it's in, some
Classical studies.
not real school.
It's interesting stuff, not valuable
You
stuff.
just read a bunch of books and stuff and then dress up in costumes or something.
Oh, I missed that class. That would have been fun.
No, you don't wear
Togas
you know.
or togas.
The fact that you can do this, like if you have enough time and motivation, in just a year. Like I mean, even if it had taken you 4 years, Martha, that still would have been cheaper than
Less
a CS
money.
degree.
Yeah.
I mean, what the heck? 4 years.
You do need to put yourself out there and distinguish yourself somehow, though.
Yeah.
It is a little bit more of a hustle if you're going to go self-taught or boot camp.
Yeah.
So putting yourself out there, and especially since there's lots of boot camp grads just being pumped out by these boot camps, how are you going to stand out from the other boot camp grads? And it really, just seeing it as a beginning.
This is where like I think I did well going to the boot camp. It's like I went in there basically knowing that I was only going to get what I put into it. I had no expectation that my teachers were going to somehow magically transform me into this computer whiz or whatever. Like they were going to provide me the space, the time, and the people. Like I was paying for the other students in my mind. Like I was paying just to be there in that place.
I think that's what I wanted the most out of boot camps is like the pizza and playing ping pong or foosball and just like hanging out with people. Really oh man, that sounds great.
So yeah, the boot camp I went to was digital crafts. It was in Atlanta, but they're doing like online stuff now. So definitely if that seems like what you want to look into, check them out. It's a legitimate school. It's very very good people. So yeah, I have no regrets about that. If you're interested in more of a slower, self-taught, cheaper alternative, then check out her book.
Oh right, I have a book. I have an ebook.
It's quite a bit cheaper. It's like 1,000 times cheaper than a boot camp.
It's called Teach Yourself to Code.
It's only 1,000 times cheaper.
One of the necessary things that boot camps give you, and that is kind of hard to find if you're just self-taught, is a guide for what to learn. And that's basically what I tried to do in this ebook, was a guide based on what I did of what to learn and when.
Yeah, because there's so much stuff. Like you could spend years just learning about some like obsolete language that doesn't even exist anymore. So it's like it's very helpful. Like so Martha, like she is basically like limiting, putting like you put limits on like in a sense is what you needed to learn. And this is what I wanted from a boot camp too, just saying like just learn this, tiny little section, and then you'll be able to get a job. And it worked for me, but also what you learned worked for you too. Like you literally got a job with what you learned. So
yes. If you're thinking about going the boot camp route,
yep.
Nat's experience of boot camps is going to be very different from what boot camps are like now, being virtual. I was a speaker at a meetup recently that was a bunch of boot camp grads attending, and basically what I picked up from them was that they regretted paying that money because they were basically at home just teaching themselves anyway. Maybe not all boot camps are like that, like some might be more engaging, but something to think about, like if you're gonna put that much money into something and it's just gonna be you learning at home by yourself, I don't know if it's worth it. There's not gonna be any pizza and foosball games, let's put it that way.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know how you learn programming, so.
Without pizza and foosball.
Ping
Well,
pong.
you did ping pong.
Well, I did foosball too. We had foosball and ping pong.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that is actually a serious consideration though. It's like, just keep in mind that you're not going to get the same level of support.
So, bootcamp, self-taught, learning to code, get my book, and subscribe too.